Hello, Naomi here. It's time to talk about the games I completed in May. I finished 6 games this month, so let's get into it. The first game I completed this month is an Atomi visual novel with dating sim and rhythm game elements called Jack and Jeanne. In this game, you're playing as a female Japanese high school student that ends up going to an all-boys theater school. To remain at the school, your character has to hide her gender, even as she potentially starts to catch feelings for her fellow classmates. A really interesting aspect of the game is the very light RPG elements. As the school year progresses, you can level up different skills that will also advance your relationship with its corresponding classmate, unlocking conversations as you get to know each other better. I took Kai's path and got the good ending, which I'm very sad I didn't get the best ending. I got close, but I just missed it. My next playthrough, I am determined to get a best ending. I watched the Fallout show on Amazon Prime, and I loved it like so many people did. Even though I've had a couple Fallout games in my collection, for some reason I've never gotten around to playing any of them until this month. So I decided Fallout 3 was the perfect place to start. This is an action role-playing game set in a post-apocalyptic alternate reality. Overall, though, I thought the game was okay. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't great for me. And when it's something you don't really feel strongly about either way, it can be a little hard to explain why sometimes, but I'm gonna try my best. The story and the world are interesting, but not compelling for me. The combat style, again, was okay, turn-based combat being my favorite. Something I really appreciate about this game is the decisions you make throughout the game affect the story, and I was happy to have my alignment maxed good. My companion ultimately ended up being Fox, the exiled super mutant from Vault 87. I'm glad I finally got around to playing this game, but it just wasn't a favorite for me. The Testament of Sherlock Holmes. This is an adventure game with some mystery and puzzle elements. Now, why did I play this game first and not Sherlock Holmes versus Jack the Ripper? Well, for some reason, I thought this was the first game, but as I was playing, I realized this is in fact the second installment. Even though I was missing some context on a few things, I really don't think it impacted the game overall for me. One thing I didn't care for was the way the story was being presented. It was told as a story some children in an attic were reading. The kids looked very creepy, and I would forget about them, then suddenly the game would cut back to them just to remind me they exist. They were very unnecessary. This is one of those games where even if you figured out the mystery, you still have to find the clues in the right sequence so the characters themselves come to the same conclusion. Occasionally, I wouldn't know what they were missing. I had a lot of fun with this game, but I'll be the first to admit that it isn't for everyone. I've only gotten into Final Fantasy more recently, so I've been trying to go back and play all of the games in the series. So this month, I decided it was Final Fantasy VIII's turn. I would say of all the Final Fantasy games I've played so far, this was probably my least favorite, but even so, I did enjoy the game overall. Each of the Final Fantasy games I've played tell a story with a grand adventure that can sometimes be a little over the top, but with this installment, I felt like the story became very convoluted. The party management system was overly complicated, causing too much of my time needed to be spent assigning and then reassigning guardian forces to party members, which is important because that is how the party members access magical abilities. I did enjoy the game, but it ultimately overstayed its welcome. Shadow of Colossus is a game I've heard great things about, so I've really been looking forward to playing. This is an action-adventure with a Metacritic score of 91. Essentially, you're defeating a series of boss battles throughout the game. Each boss has a different trick to defeating it, which gives a little bit of a puzzly feeling, which I enjoyed. The story is also really good, so I do see why it has the ratings it does. What I disliked about the game is traveling to each boss. It just felt like so much running around, and I found myself getting really bored between the bosses. So I have to admit, I think I went into the game with my expectations set too high, which set me up to be a little let down. It really is a good game, but I just found myself getting bored too often to say it was great. Red Dead Redemption Game of the Year Edition. This is another action-adventure game, but this time it's set in the early 1900s America with a Western cowboy theme. Now, this is actually a game I had played before and thought it was only okay, but I decided to replay it because I really wanted to play the second game, but couldn't remember the story of the first well. You really don't need to play the first game to play the second, but I really wanted to give this game a second chance. Now, as far as my personal taste goes, this game out the gate has two things against it. I don't care for the Old West theme, and I don't enjoy playing the bad guy. John Marston, the player character, isn't a bad guy, he's morally gray at best, but I had a hard time connecting to him. I also found the traveling to be very boring. I don't find horseback riding in games to be very interesting. There were also a couple quests where you had to herd cattle, and I just don't see the appeal. I know a lot of people really love this game, but it's my least favorite game I've played this year so far. The Futurama game, which is on the Xbox and PlayStation 2, are quite expensive games, as you can see here. But if you're wanting to experience the story without owning the game, then the DVD version of The Beast with a Billion Backs has a special feature called The Lost Episode, which is actually the full story of the game and some of the gameplay as well. So this isn't a game I completed, but I think it's a really cool gaming thing I got to watch for the first time this month. If you're a Futurama fan, this is just a really cool thing to have. Well, that's all for the games I played in May. Not everyone is going to like every game, and this month did have some misses for me. Even though I didn't love all of the games I played, I still had a lot of fun experiencing these stories. My favorite game this month was Jack and Jeanne. This year, so far, I've completed 36 games in total. Well, thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, consider giving a like and subscribing. And until next time, happy gaming!